Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarin. I'm joined by Paul Thurrott on this Christmas Eve special. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good. How are you?
I had to try a second time at that. That's the perk of watching live. You get to see me screw up as many times as I possibly can.
Might I add that you're looking swarthier than ever?
How do you like the beard? I got this gigantic beard going now.
Is it eventually going to fill in so that it all looks like the same length?
It is the same length. That's the crazy part. I just have patches. Like, look at this. I just have holes all over my face. It's not a great beard. I mean, I had lunch with Ayaz on Friday, and that is an impressive beard that he has going. I don't think I can. I don't think it's possible for me to grow it, and I'm growing it to spite my wife because she hates it. So we're going to see what happens with that. Can you grow facial hair like that, Paul?
Yeah, I could squeeze out a beard right now if I struggled hard enough.
Can we see you try?
Yeah, I mean, look at my... this is like... I didn't shave today. By mistake, actually. But
did you ever go through the phase of having the 80s mustache? And did you do any of that?
I don't... facial hair itches for me, so I don't... I always get down the path, and then I'm like, I can't deal with this.
So as I said, today's a special show. We're going to do our worst of 2013, and there were a lot of things that were awful and bad, and
well, all right. But we should first a couple of things about the list before we get started, if you don't mind. One is we should alternate between our lists, right?
Okay.
And actually, I guess I'll say three things. One is my list is in no particular order. Like I don't really think that my number one thing is the worst.
Yeah, same with me. Same with me.
The other one is that I want to be clear that this is done without malicious intent, right? In other words, when I say that something is bad technology or, like a worst of 2013 kind of thing, there are a lot of factors that go into that, and we'll explain them on kind of a case-by-case basis. It's not, malicious toward a company or whatever. It's just these are not good buys. They're not good, things to get. They're,
And also, I mean, some of the things on the list, I do see a turnaround for in the new year. Mm-hmm. So,
and we may disagree with each other too.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple things I haven't added either on this, and we also have the viewers' worst of.
Yeah.
You guys tweeted us, and I was so surprised that some of the things. Some of the things were like spot on. I was like, I agree, and then some of the stuff I was like, I find that a little weird. Why? Why do you have that on the list? So before we go into the list, let me just run down really quickly the things that were wrong last year. The worst of 2012. I'm just going to go through them really quickly. I'll do Paul's and I'll do mine. So Paul on his list had RIM, Nokia, Intel, and Microsoft. I wonder why he had Intel and Microsoft.
And well,
I can't remember that.
Yeah, I have this notion that last year, as we were kind of racing for the release of Windows 8, that
that's what it was. Yeah,
there was this thing going on with the chips weren't ready, Windows 8 wasn't ready, and they both shipped in last year regardless.
Okay,
so an incomplete OS on last gen chips, like just this year now, we're seeing those Bay Trail chips for the low end, and then the 4th generation core processor on the high end.
Barnes & Noble Nook, which we got almost nothing this year from them. Console gaming. I'm curious why you had that. Windows Phone market share.
Console gaming, because I feel like those guys stretched out the last generation a year or two too long.
Okay.
And you can sort of see it in this year how things imploded sales-wise, and then how things exploded sales-wise once the new stuff came out.
It's also fascinating that they didn't have too many launch titles. I mean,
yeah,
they had a lot of time.
That may not be unique, but I mean, actually, this isn't. I'm just doing this off the top of my head, so this isn't true. I know as soon as I say this, someone will say, "No, Paul," and whatever year this happened. But I'd almost have to go back to like Super Nintendo for the last console that shipped with a truly awesome launch title. Yeah, and I think that Super Mario game came with the console, I think.
Well, I think Nintendo's always done that well, that the launch title is a official launch title when they released the console. Even with the Wii U, I mean, it's been a blunder, but they did have, Mario there. Can you imagine releasing Nintendo without a Mario game?
Well, that's yeah.
So regardless. So you also had Windows Phone market share plus Windows 7 users, no upgrade to Windows Phone 8. I totally forgot about Windows Phone 7.
Right.
I mean, it's almost like Microsoft has done a really good job at totally erasing that.
Well, through a combination of factors. I mean, one, the user base for Windows Phone 7 wasn't that big, and so even though those people were very vocal about complaining, as they should have been, the fact is it was a kind of a small market. And of course, since then, Microsoft's done a great job of selling Windows Phone. So when you look at the Windows 7 usage share numbers, overwhelmingly, it's already Windows Phone 8. So that's changed big time.
On my list, I had Apple Maps, AMD, NFC Google Wallets, PC manufacturers with Windows 8. The viewers had iPhone 5, iPad, and iPad Mini, and HP.
Jeez.
I actually do not agree with the viewers at all with this list. I think the iPad Mini was a huge hit. HP, I agree with. Yeah, disaster.
I think a lot of people pick their little pet things. Like, there are people who hate Apple, so like, I'm going to put Apple on the list. There are people who hate Google or Android. They put that on the list. People hate Windows 8, so that stuff goes on the list. Whatever. I mean, iPhone 5C last year, whatever. HP, I don't know. HP has not been doing too well for a while, but they seem to be coming back. What else was on there from the readers?
iPhone 5, iPad Mini, and
the
HP.
iPads. Yeah, I mean, that's just whatever. They're expensive, but I don't think anyone would claim.
Actually, you know what, Paul? I would say that the iPad 3 and iPad 4 was this weird thing because the iPad 4 was a replacement to the iPad 3 because it was awful. And in looking back now, I don't remember when the iPad 3 came out that people were saying, "Oh wow, this thing is awful," but they were quick to fix those issues because they realized, I mean, there was a lot of issues with it. So that was last year. That was 2012. Now we're in 2013, ending the year, and I feel that it was a little bit of a better year when it came to it. Like, our list was gigantic in 2011 and 2012.
Yeah, I had a hard time this year.
I did too. And and everything that I have on my list, except for a couple things, can be turned around. And I think the same goes for your list,
I would
too.
say everything on my list, with maybe one exception, impacts a very small audience.
Yeah.
In other words, the things that I'm complaining about, it's not like they hurt a lot of people because a lot of people didn't buy any of these things anyway. So it's interesting.
So I'll go first if you don't mind, Paul.
I don't mind.
I'm going to go with Facebook Home. And
I had to look that one up. I forgot what it was.
It was such a big deal when it came out. Do you remember every blog was talking about it? Everybody was saying how this is really great. Phone. The Facebook phone. This is a step towards the Facebook phone, and it kind of takes over your Android phone and it skins it, so it simplifies it. So it's all about Facebook. I don't know anybody running it, and there were initial 1 million downloads. Do you remember that? Initially, 1 million people downloaded this thing. It looked pretty, and I said exactly what happened. People are going to download it, they're going to use it for about a day, and they're going to uninstall it because it's awful.
It sort of presumes that people live in Facebook, and I think the reality of people's interaction with technology, most people, is that it's a combination of work and home. And that having Facebook be that front and center is a little, I think, off, from how people do things. It was probably kind of an affront to Facebook. I'm sure they expected it to be very successful.
I think they did too, considering, the market share that they have of people just on the internet using Facebook. I mean, it's tremendous. But do you want it to be your phone? Apparently
not.
In a weird way.
Although it's funny, out in the world, I mean, I use Facebook a lot when I'm doing stuff. I don't know. Maybe we don't want to be inundated by what other people are doing when we're not doing stuff.
I also feel that a lot of people don't use Facebook, and I'm amazed at that. Every time we do the Stitcher Award stuff, which I think we're nominated, Paul. I think we are. I'm not too sure. We'll find out in a couple days. But I'll get a lot of emails from people saying, "Hey, I love to vote for you, but I don't have Facebook. I don't use Facebook."
Yeah.
And I think
there is a disconnect. I mean, I got to say though, my wife is a good example, maybe, of a normal person. She's come to me and talked to me about Twitter. Should I be on Twitter? And it's tough for me with Twitter because I don't actually understand what normal people get out of Twitter. But Facebook, I get. Like Facebook is just about me keeping in touch with my friends and my family. And to me, this is a great thing to do. It's a way for me to know that my cousins who live all over the country and they have kids and the kids are starting to walk for the first time or whatever they're doing, I don't have to wait for some family reunion or some event in the future or whatever
to see them.
I can find out it's amazing. I interact with my relatives in particular and some friends who also live far away.
But you recently did that, right? You just recently cleansed your Facebook because I remember.
Actually, it's not recently anymore. I mean, I don't remember when I did a few years ago.
Let's say like 2 years ago, but initially you were opening it up to everybody.
Yeah, and that was a mistake, right? Yeah. But I mean, that's just a sort of a relearning or a way to figure out how to use something properly, in my case anyway.
Because I have the same problem as you, and I'm having a very difficult time of cutting people out that, so I'm looking at my news feed, and it's filled with just people I have no idea who they are. Yeah. And my Twitter, on the other hand, is very tight. It's very small. I probably follow 150 people on there, and it's only people that I know or I've had some sort of interaction with. I
don't know this for a fact. I don't know how mine breaks down exactly, but I bet over 50% of the people that I'm following on Twitter are actually companies, like groups at Microsoft or other companies. Like they're not people, they're product groups or something, because they'll post stuff occasionally.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It is interesting. I mean, how people are using these things. But yeah, Facebook Home, that was mine. I thought they would have probably expanded this thing and they would have had more information about it, but I believe there was maybe one or two significant updates to it, and they say that most people are not even using this thing anymore. So that's done.
It's amazing because the service has got to be the most popular social networking service in the world, obviously.
But the kids aren't using it anymore, Paul. It's not cool anymore.
Well,
it's all about Instagramming and Snapchatting.
Yeah. So that's cute, and I don't think that those things have legs. I think that something like Facebook does have legs because those people will eventually mature and realize that kind of interaction is in fact valuable.
Yeah.
Twitter. I use Twitter to keep up with what's going on in the world. Right, in my case, in technology. And I make my share of funny and sarcastic comments on Twitter and all that stuff. It astonishes me how often what I write is misunderstood. This is happening as we speak.
Right now, someone's misunderstanding.
Mean-spirited individual. It's sad, and it also amazes me by how often people use something I read on Twitter as an opportunity to challenge me. Even in small ways. Like I'll say something like, "Here's a really shitty tech headline that I saw today." And it will be whatever it is. And then someone will write back and say, it's not as bad as this one. And it's like, dude, it's not a contest. Like I feel like a lot of my interactions on Twitter are unhealthy. I almost wish there was less of it in a way. It's too bad. I don't want to not be out there, but it seems like there's always people not trying to ruin it, but ruining it just because of the way people are.
People are ruining it. By me being associated to you, I'll get like you're kind of like you have like maybe like 3 or 4 like really crazy people on Twitter, and you've blocked them, and they've realized that you blocked them, so now they message me with like everything addressing whatever you say.
Right.
Which I'm flattered by it. I am flattered to be a liaison to Paul's hating. That's actually I look forward to those messages every day. But right. I came late to the game, Paul. I was not active on Twitter. Even when I started doing podcasts, I still wasn't active on Twitter. I didn't get it until I got it. And now I'm using that pretty much exclusively for everything. I'm rarely on Facebook. So it's interesting how everything happens. So what's your pick? I mean, we've been talking talking about my pick, which was Facebook Home. What is one of your picks this year?
Let's see. I guess I'm going to go with the iPhone 5C.
Okay.
And the reason I picked that one to go with first, I should say, is because I think people see that and they're like, "Oh, Paul, Apple product, of course. Here you go again." And it's not like that. I respect the fact that Apple is positioning itself for the high end of the market. People like to compare Apple to the to BMW and so forth. Okay, fair enough. That's fine. The iPhone 5C was a chance for Apple to stem the market share slide that is occurring for them in the smartphone market. And they could do it in an Apple way. And that means not competing with the low-end plasticky Android devices and the Lumia 520 or whatever in the $99 segment, but by meeting the price halfway between their extraordinarily high-priced iPhone 5S and reality. Just hitting it in the middle. It's something they don't do enough. And the way that Apple has done it historically before this year is by just reselling older products, right? We've complained about that. They would sell the iPhone 4 and the 4S and the 5. And if you wanted to save money on an Apple product, you bought the 4 or the 4S. And I just sort of wish that Apple offered a new entry-level product for Apple. BMW has a 1 Series. Mercedes has an A and a B class in Europe, and now they have a CLA here in the United States.
Even they have the C
luxury
class
brands
here. Yeah.
have entry-level models for them. The entry-level BMW, the entry-level Mercedes doesn't compete with the entry-level Honda or Toyota or whatever. It doesn't have to. But it's also not as expensive as a high-end thing. And I think the iPhone 5C was an opportunity for Apple to hit that middle ground. Everyone expected them to do it. Everyone expected them to offer it cheaply in countries like China, where they're getting killed. And they didn't do it. And it's just kind of a hubris thing. Like it's a weird refusal to play by the rules when I don't feel they have to play by the rules, that they can make their own rules, but that they can meet people halfway. And shoveling off old products up until the iPhone 5S and 5C shipped, you could buy an iPhone 4 from Apple brand new. This product had come out 4 years ago? It's sad, that they do stuff like that. So
the biggest thing that surprised me was that I really think they had a chance to even capture not emerging markets, not entry level price points, but they had an interesting thing that they could have done, and I think Google's doing it now with their unsubsidized pricing. Forget about the $99.
That's what I mean. But you know what? I'm a very price conscious. All I'm saying is Apple will never do that. I accept it. It's fine. But I really do feel like they can meet people halfway.
I mean, if they put $349 on this thing and said, you know what, this is going to be an unsubsidized phone. We want people to buy it. Forget about a contract. They don't even offer it. I would have bought one. I know a lot of people that would have. I know a lot of people that
like the design. Of course I do. I loved it when Nokia invented it 2 years earlier, whatever. But it's just too bad, And I want to be clear. It's just that, Apple has their reasons. I get it. The iPhone 5S is fine,
But is that $100 difference?
Innovations, that little touch sensor thing in the home button.
But when we talk about the pricing,
like
Paul, do you feel that the $100 difference is a make or break for this device? I don't
think they sold any of these things. And by the way, let's not speak literally. I don't take this literally. Everyone always does that. I'm sure the sales breakdown was anywhere from 3-to-1 to 10-to-1 iPhone 5S to 5C. This is a device that could have been the sales leader if they just went down a little bit, just kind of just met us halfway on the price. There are kids, teenagers, young people of all kinds, young professionals who would love a colorful plastic device that had, it was basically last year's specs. It's got the dual antenna thing or whatever, multi carrier antenna, whatever it is. But basically last year's specs. It's fine, and they just can't bring themselves to do it, and it's too bad.
I mean, look at Nokia, for example. I would not have gotten into the Windows Phone ecosystem if they hadn't done a unsubsidized price point on a phone. And I'm talking about the entry-level phone. I'm talking about a $99 phone that, it's not a flagship whatsoever, but it is made by the flagship manufacturer, and it is giving you pretty much everything that you would get on the higher ones. I'm now more inclined, and I'm not saying me as who I am now, but as a consumer, I'm more inclined to stay in the ecosystem and purchase another one. Why? Because I'm already in there, I'm invested, and my next phone will probably be the better one.
Look, I mean, Apple and Nokia have completely different problems. Nokia can't sell phones on the high end, and Apple can. So that's a problem for Nokia. They obviously, that company would like to make more money per phone, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think they need to meet in the middle. I also would say just from the Nokia perspective, they almost have too many phones. I mean, they have very very large number of models in the low end.
But why are they doing that? Are they doing that because they want to hit Europe and they want to hit emerging markets and they want to hit the U.S. and so they offer, I mean, thousand things?
It's because they have to. So, and there's two aspects to it. One is, yes, the different markets, emerging markets, et cetera. But the other one is just wireless carriers. You know, Apple can walk into a wireless carrier anywhere on Earth and say, you are going to sell the exact same phone that we sell everywhere else, and no one can question that. Nokia doesn't have that kind of power. And so when they go to a Verizon or an AT&T or whatever the carrier may be, those folks say, no, you need to make one for us.
Yeah.
And that's why you see things like the 521 and the 520 and the 920, the 925, the 928. You know, you don't see the same device at each carrier. They have to do it. And it's unfortunate because you get in this weird situation where this one device has this thing that's really cool. You know, this one over here has this thing that's really cool. And this one has this thing over here that's really cool. And they differentiate a little bit. But it doesn't really matter because you're an AT&T and you have to get the 920 or the whichever one. And I also think it creates a little bit of confusion. People get edgy when they buy something and a slightly different and possibly better one appears on a different carrier.
Doesn't work well.
I think that creates a little bit of, not mistrust, but feelings of angst from customers, which is not the situation you want with your customers, you know. And so it's not something they do maliciously. It's something they have to do because Nokia simply doesn't have the market power of Apple.
And I'm sure next week when we do our best of, Nokia is definitely going to be on mine because they really, as far as a brand goes, they've never had a huge brand recognition in the U.S. like they have in Europe, but I think they are slowly getting there now with, you know, becoming the Windows Phone. I mean, you know, they are Windows Phone to me. I would never buy anything else.
They literally are Windows Phone. Yeah. I think that's fair to say.
That you could take literally, 90%. Actually.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pick one on my list. Again, we're doing our worst of the year, and you know, some of the stuff it's gray. Nothing is black or white here, and a lot of these companies can still do a turnaround. What we're saying is, we're not saying that the iPhone is one of the worst products, but we're saying we didn't like this certain thing that the company did.
If you want an iPhone, get an iPhone 5S.
Yeah,
you know, just sure. I mean, it's a fine phone. You know,
I'm gonna go with BlackBerry. And BlackBerry's been on a list for the last 3 years. I'm going to put it on my list again, not because of the phones that they put out, because I honestly think that the Z10, Z20, and Z30 are stellar phones. They're really good phones.
Yeah.
And actually, it was probably one of the best phones that I've used all year. And people think I'm crazy for saying that, but I spent about a month and a half with this phone, and it felt really natural. There was not a tremendous learning curve. It did exactly what it was supposed to, and I was blown away at the quality of the camera. And this was the first BlackBerry I've ever used. I was really impressed with it. The problem that I have is the company itself and how they have gone back on everything that they have said. In 1 year, they have released 3 of the same phones, the Z10, Z20, Z30. And this was a company that said, we're going to have 2 phones, one with a keyboard and one without a keyboard, and that's it. They have changed. You
remember, they were on the list last year because they didn't ship BlackBerry 10.
They're trying to make up for the last 3 years.
Remember last year they delayed it.
Yeah.
BlackBerry 10, the system. And so this year they did, but man, nobody noticed.
Nobody noticed. And it's a shame. I don't know. I feel like this is 2011 all over again with Palm, where Palm put out a great phone. Not a tremendous phone, but it was a really good phone. Unfortunately, it came at a time where everything was being compared to the iPhone, and they ran out of money. So with BlackBerry now, they have a really solid operating system. They have a really solid phone. Where do you go with this? And I think a lot of people are not purchasing it because they are terrified that this company is about to go away any day now.
Yeah, that's a valid concern, and that's the problem, you know. I've not used these systems. I don't have any animosity toward the company or the technology or anything. Well, some of the server technology I'm not too excited about, but whatever. But the phones, you know, they do look solid. I think that BlackBerry 10 is going to go into that same bucket that we have for such failed but possibly wonderful technologies as WebOS, which is what you were referring to. Next Step, which of course did live on as Mac OS 10, but the Amiga, BOS, things like that, where there was something cool there. You know, there was something really neat. It stood for something.
What I don't what I don't understand is that, you'll see, I hate this ringtone, can I tell you? And I can't turn it off. It's a child's, my ringtone is a child singing Life is Good. There's nothing good about life. On my phone, LG.
No, I mean, why? How could that possibly be the ringtone?
That's the ringtone, and every time I set it, I turn it off, and I reset the phone, it defaults back to it.
Wow.
I hate that child in this phone. A lot of people say, well, BlackBerry's going to get bought up by somebody, and they're just going to continue it. Well, Microsoft could buy them. Well, why would Microsoft continue the operating system?
Which operating system?
BlackBerry OS. Why? What benefit is it to Microsoft to take them over and then continue developing it?
That cannot happen.
It won't happen.
Obviously. That cannot happen. I mean, not Microsoft buying them can't happen. Microsoft continuing the BlackBerry, that's not going to happen.
If I could do it, I would take the company, really make it a tiny little company, put out 2 phones a year, and target enterprise exclusively, and really solidify yourself again as a enterprise brand, because that's a market that they did really well in, and I could see them surviving with that. But really, I don't know. The way that they're going, they just got a new CEO again. So, and I believe he's Chinese, and they're trying to grab emerging markets now.
There's no room for this company. I feel bad about that. Again, it's not animosity.
It's sad.
It's weird. It's just weird. It's weird watching this company's kind of struggle along.
And it should not be struggling at this level. It should. It really. Well,
they clearly were not happy with any of the deals they got from whatever companies were interested in buying parts of them or something. Clearly that is the reason we're watching this happen now. But the problem, for BlackBerry is that their technologies, their patents, whatever they have, this stuff doesn't get more valuable over time. It's like food that you leave out on the counter. It's going bad.
Slowly, but it is.
Yeah. It just doesn't get worth more.
It's like that fruitcake from 20 years ago, Yeah.
Yeah.
It's eventually just going to go bad. So
yeah, it's too bad. I feel bad about it.
Yeah. Paul, what's on your list?
So let's see. What do we have? Well, let's take one that's actually this one's only mine. So one that I have on here is Chromecast.
Okay.
I will admit that Chromecast has improved over time, right? And it's possible that this is something I need to look at again, from a review sense. But the fundamental problem of this technology remains. And I think here's an instance where Google is selling something very cheaply, what is it, like $35 for this dongle thing that you stick on your HD TV. The theory being that you have a phone or a tablet that you can use as a smart remote, and you can basically stream stuff.
Or a computer.
To the TV. Or a computer, but no one's going to use a computer. So... well, maybe a Chromecast, whatever. A Chromebook, I don't know.
I use my MacBook all the time with it.
Okay. Yeah. Here's the thing. For just a few dollars more, you can get a device that also plugs into your TV, that has a remote control, that has far more channels of entertainment. Doesn't require you to stream anything from a device, doesn't require you to own that device. Just has a normal remote control. It's really simple, and it works really well. There is just no point behind a Chromecast at all, except that when you are a hammer, everything you see is a nail. And in this case, you're Google. And you really need to have some kind of a living room solution. And let's face it, that Roku-looking thing that you were trying to make, nobody wanted. And so now you're coming at it from the other angle. And the other angle is, well, one thing that we do that's really popular is we make all these, our system is on smartphones and tablets. And so we'll just make this as an accessory for those. And I get it. I get why they're doing it. I just think it's pretty much zero interest. The only thing with one caveat to say, so there are not a lot of places where you can get Google Play content onto a TV, right? If you access Google Play through YouTube, like the movies and TV shows, I believe it's still not HD resolution. So even if you did some wacky setup where you had your computer connected and you wanted to access it that way, you couldn't do it. And so I guess the theory here is that this is one way you can get that stuff going. But honestly, most people would be better off just using their device directly and connecting an HDMI cable if it supports that. Phones don't, obviously. But I think that when you think about content stores in the cloud, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, your content's in the cloud. And so whatever endpoints you have will be able to access it. So if I buy a movie on Xbox video on my phone, I can watch it on my Xbox One. I can watch it on my Windows 8 tablet when I'm on the road. The Apple stuff works the same way. The Amazon stuff works the same way. The Google stuff works the same way, except that the Google Play stuff is not available on any of these other devices, and that's Google's fault. And so this is just Google pigeonholing Android users into their stupid little system. And I just think it sucks. It's the worst of all possible experiences compared to Roku, Apple TV, and Xbox, whatever. All of those things are better. They make more sense in the living room, and they're the types of solutions that anyone can use with no technical training at all. They just work. They work the way that you expect them to work. And Chromecast does not. So
this is something that I've been saying a while for Google, and Google has that beta mentality where, you know, they'll release a product and it's out there and people use it, and if it works, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't. But that does not work well when people are paying to use a service or a product. Google TV is a perfect example of them failing with delivering on a product. And the problem with having that beta mentality is that you put it out and then you don't continue to support it. And we saw that happen with Google TV. All these deals that they were supposed to get with Samsung, you were supposed to be in LG, they were supposed to be making new set-top boxes and releasing...
I would rather see Google Play available as an app, or however you want to put it, on smart TVs, on Roku, on Xbox, you know, whatever. I mean, it should just be out there, you know. I would also rather see Google release a $50 hockey puck Roku-looking device that just did Google Play with its own remote. That would still be a better way to watch the stuff. This notion that we have to have the same device with us wherever we go is so stupid. You know, like just leave something attached to the TV. You don't have, why do you have to use your tablet? It's so silly.
Well, there was some information that came out recently that Google's next version of Google TV is going to be Nexus. They're rebranding it as Nexus, and they're going to be pushing it out there. But what we have to remember is that this Chromecast, they used us as guinea pigs to test out the technology, to work out the kinks. And they made us invest $30 to test a product that is nowhere near completion, and that will be adapted in another product.
$30 is negligible, or whatever. You know, the price.
By the way, let me just say, I have bought probably 7 Chromecasts to give to people for Christmas.
Makes me sad.
You know why I bought it? Because it's inexpensive, and someone gets it to go, oh wow, this is cool. I could, you know, watch whatever on a TV, and it's $30. That's the only reason why I bought it.
Again, you can get a Roku for $50.
I don't want to spend the extra 20, Paul.
I don't know.
I don't think
much better deal.
I don't think my wife's cousin Tommy deserves me to spend the $20 extra on his gift.
All right.
So we spoke about the Chromecast. I do think that the technology that they're using will be really cool in the next version of whatever set-top box type device that they put out this year.
The Chromecast doesn't run Chrome.
It does run
Why is
Chrome.
it called Chromecast?
You know what? Do you know why it's called Chromecast?
No.
On the PC or on the desktop, when you beam over video, you're beaming your actual Chrome window.
Chrome.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you're actually using Chrome with it. So some sites like YouTube, it just automatically knows that it's YouTube, so it'll just make it big and the videos are there. But if I'm on like a Daily Motion or even just a regular website, I'll just beam over my my Chrome.
I don't like Chromecast, you know, as I said, but this is one of those things. I also recognize that things change over time, right? You can improve things with software. This is something I'll look at again. I mean, I'll keep looking at it. I'm very interested in living room entertainment stuff. I've always been interested in all the digital music services and so forth. I mean, I'll look at it again.
Yeah. Very cool. I guess it's my pick. So we both agree on this about the Chromebook.
Yep.
And I'll tell you why I have it on my list. I have it on my list is because it's the hype before the product, really, with this thing. The product is a very dumbed-down version of everything that you're going to be doing, and it's inexpensive. For $300, you're getting a laptop, and you could do your word processing on it. But it's an incomplete project from Google, and they're selling these, you know, low-end computers, and that's why people are buying it. To me, it feels like the netbook all over again.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly what it is.
I mean, but unfortunately, you're not getting Windows. With the netbook, at least you were getting Windows.
lest anyone misunderstand my antagonism toward Chromebook, I would just remind people, I think a better device for Android for Google to have made would have been Android on a notebook form factor machine, which, by the way, would run Chrome and would give you all of the benefits of Chrome OS plus all of that stuff you get just for being on Android. Android has the biggest app selection in the world. Maybe all of them aren't going to run on a non-touch based device or whatever. I get that, but it is, by virtue of its popularity, probably the most well understood developer environment, applications, SDKs and so forth. It's just the logical choice.
What has been the reasoning behind it? Why not take Android and put that on?
I don't know.
I
don't know. I really don't know. I really thought they were going to do that this year. Combine them like that. One OS. I don't know why they would. They make fun of Microsoft for having multiple OSs. Multiple OSs. I just don't get it. I do. Look. I've always been a fan of simplicity. I've always been a fan of that kind of what I always think of as like just enough or good enough technology, that kind of thing. It's not good enough, and that's the problem with it. Too much of it doesn't work when it's offline. You can't do some very basic things that you expect to be able to do on a computer. And as is the case with Windows RT, when you open up a laptop, which is what these things are, you have certain expectations.
I also think another portion of this is, when you compare it to a netbook, right? A lot of people say, well, it's like the netbook. Why did you buy a netbook? Well, okay, with the netbook, you got at least 250 gigs of hard drive space. With this thing, you're getting 16 gigs.
Oh, by the way, with a netbook, it ran the applications you expect to run. It might have run them slowly. It might have run them poorly. But you could run iTunes on that thing. You could run Adobe Photoshop Express or whatever it's called.
Where is the future of this device, though, Paul? Like, I understand people saying, well, they got to continue developing it. I understand that, but developing it to what?
Right. So we may not like this thing. We may argue, as I just did, that Android makes more sense and so forth.
The hardware's pretty.
But we also live in reality. So Google makes this thing. So what's the future of Chrome OS? Chrome OS has actually been quite successful this year, right? It has hit Microsoft at the low end of the market in a very unexpected way at a time when they had other concerns with Windows 8. It was very damaging. And so it arguably has been successful in some ways. Like Chromecast, and actually even more so than Chromecast, Chromebook is something, Chrome OS is something that can and will improve regularly. We saw over the course of this year more and more web apps being made available for offline use, which is very important to this platform. And so I actually, it's funny. I have two things with the word Chrome in it that are on my list of worst technology. I use Chrome web browser on Windows regularly. I love it. I think it's fantastic, full featured and so forth. It's odd to me how limited it is on Chrome OS compared to Windows, but whatever. It's conceivable that this thing could turn into something good too, right? Chrome OS does at least prove that web apps are viable as kind of a first-class platform. If you go and look at the Chrome store, it's very limited. It's the smallest app store there is. I mean, BlackBerry has more apps. Windows RT has more apps, but there are some good-looking apps in there too, right? And so the platform's viable. It can only improve, and maybe next year our view of this thing will change as this product evolves, because that's what happens. It doesn't just stand still. But as of now, it's just like Chromecast. I can't justify ever choosing this over other stuff. I just think that other products make more sense for most people, again, speaking generally, than Chromecast does.
I do think that the hardware that they're using is pretty nice. That HP that they're using, it's a nice looking computer.
There's a range, yes.
Yeah. I felt for $300, you know what? This is a really cool computer.
It's a beautiful machine,
Why isn't that on Windows?
The exploding power supply is a nice touch too, especially
well, that's a feature.
No,
that's a feature.
That's okay. Look, hey, by the way, just to defend HP or whoever is responsible for that, just remind people, Apple had the same problem with their little power adapter. Remember the little square thing they made for the iPhone and iPod? That had problems.
Well, let me show you something.
And every time you buy one, that has a little green dot on it.
I don't know if you could see this on the camera, but this is electric tape. Why do I have electric tape? Every single power cord that I get from Apple, and I've had this for 5 years, the plastic starts getting soft.
Right.
And literally starts melting off. So I have to put electric tape on this. I was thrown out of the Apple store because I actually lost my mind in there. I had a mental breakdown when they told me that they're not giving me a new one because it had electric tape on it. And if I hadn't put electric tape, they would have given me a new one for free. And I asked them why. And he goes, well, you've modified it. I'm like, I modified it so I don't die.
Right.
They didn't understand
it would have cost
that,
Apple more in the pending lawsuit when your house burned down because of a melting power cable.
So this is what happens to the power, the cord for the power adapter on the Apple side. This is every single one that I have ever bought, every single one that I have used. My wife's MacBook that they gave her at her job has the same problem.
So I don't know what to say to this.
Maybe it's something that I'm using. I don't think I'm cleaning with anything special. I mean, this thing just sits here.
Sure.
It's the worst. Absolutely hate it.
Sorry.
Was it my pick or your pick now, Paul?
I think it is your pick.
We did the Chromebook. We did Blackberry. My pick is the Wii U. And yes, it came out in 2012, but they had the entire year to kind of redo all their mistakes from late 2012. They came out in November. So a lot of people are anticipating a lot of good titles to come out with this thing. There's only been one flagship title that's come out, which is Mario, and then they just released another Mario game. They haven't released a Zelda game. They remastered one and released it, but this console itself is not awful. And I do think that it is a cool little device that people could buy. They're not going to spend the $600. You're spending $249 now on this thing, and it comes with a game. But really, they just another perfect example of not adapting to the market and not evolving with the market. They are still using that mentality that they are a console, and that is what they are, and that is what they do, and they put out 2 video games a year, and they're going to put out another 2 video games the following year. I don't see that happening in 2013, 2014, when you're competing with an iPad for $299 a game.
So I don't have any experience with the Wii U at all. I don't think I've ever seen one in person. But I will say this. Nintendo, unlike Microsoft and Sony, actually makes money when they sell consoles. And Nintendo also makes these portable video game devices that are actually doing pretty well, for whatever it's worth. And one of the long complaints about Nintendo is that to play their games, which a lot of people would like to do, I think, you need to buy their device. And a lot of people have said of Nintendo, and I've made this argument in the past too, why don't you do what Sega did? Port your games. Use them as a way to get people excited about this game library you have, and maybe they'll want to do it on, one of your consoles down the road or something. But they've never done that. And it's funny, I get the feeling that Nintendo exists in this space, kind of like Apple, where they just don't have to follow the rules, for whatever reason. And I don't know why. I mean, but it is odd that they just seem to exist, maybe not above it, but outside of it. They're almost not in the same market.
They are missing on such an opportunity that they could have with.
But I wonder, if
with the library of games that they have.
Yeah,
I mean, even based on the nostalgia, I'm 30. And
if they release Super Mario Brothers
in HD
right now on iPhone or whatever,
well, not even. Right? I mean, they could do that, but what they could also do,
it would be millions.
Oh yeah, tons
right?
of it, tons. I mean, everybody would be downloading it. But regardless of using the iPhone or Android, if they released all these titles, I mean, they don't have to put out a game for the next 5 years, in my opinion. All they should do is take all these titles, remaster them to HD. And sell them for $10 on their whatever store that they're doing. They also take those titles and release them on the iPad and whatever. They could be the #1 gaming platform out there. But they're so closed, and they're still sticking to the traditional way of doing things. Honestly, I can't see them putting out another console.
Is this a weakness or a strength? Like we celebrate when Apple does this, right? Apple. Of course, Apple makes incredible amounts of money too, so maybe that's the ultimate justification. But Apple is celebrated for being this kind of iconoclastic, different company. I mean, maybe Nintendo's just different.
I don't know. I also think it's adapting to the U.S. market. You know, Nintendo has done things very well in Japan.
Right.
And I think it's them adapting to the U.S. market. You know, it's a totally different market. It's a totally different consumer base that buys things totally differently. And I don't think that they understand the U.S. market as well as we would imagine they do, or hope that they do. I'm a big Nintendo fan. Yeah. I just think that they've dropped the ball on so many things, and they've half-assed so many projects that they've put out.
Yep.
That I don't know if they could continue to do this.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, well, but let's put it this way: when Sony or Microsoft comes out with this new generation console, PS4, Xbox One, right? Years of research and development, billions of dollars in costs. Is it possible? Well, okay, I'm sorry. Let me to continue that. It's going to take them years before those things become break even, let alone start making money, and then years more before they can, hopefully, if nothing else goes wrong, start to make money on this generation of hardware, right? I mean, obviously they're making money on the games they sell and everything, and so at some point, several years down the road, this thing starts to become a money making entity. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that Nintendo hits that point much more quickly, and thus, first of all, doesn't have to sell as many units, and so for this generation, as with the GameCube, they can just say, look, we sold whatever we sold. It's not as much as the other guys, but it doesn't matter. We might have still made more money. We certainly made more money early on. This funds the next generation, and maybe for those guys, where Sony and Microsoft are looking at always pushing out the life cycle of these devices, Nintendo can say, well, we're going to come out with the Wii U 2 or whatever it is 2 or 3 years down the road instead of 8 years down the road or 10 years down the road or whatever it is that Microsoft and Sony are hoping to do.
Thinking back, maybe the concept of releasing all these games on iOS may not be a great thing, and I'll tell you why. I downloaded Double Dragon. They have the 3 Double Dragons on the iPad. Okay. I have to tell you, it was the worst experience of playing this game. The controls are
because touch stinks for those guys.
It stinks. Number one. Number two.
Well, but what if?
There's a controller.
What if Nintendo came out with a controller that worked on those things?
Oh, I think it'd be huge. It'd be great.
Especially if it looked like the old-fashioned Nintendo controller, right? I mean, that's interesting. I don't know. It's just something I want to see selfishly as a user. But looking at it from their perspective, I don't know.
Well, the other problem that I saw that was with the music. It's not the original music from the game.
Oh, really?
And it's like this weird it's not even remastered. It's like a parody or a cover.
Different.
Yeah, it's totally different. I mean, it kind of sounds like it, but it's not it. And it really it messes with you when you're playing because you're like, wow, I used to play this game and this is not the same game that I'm playing.
Right.
So I don't know if there's something to do with the royalties on the music too. Who knows? I don't know. All right, Paul, your pick.
Let's see what we have left. Well, yeah, neither one of these are too great. But so I'm going to go with the Acer Iconia W3. And the reason I picked this one is that for a couple of years now, I'm trying to think of what it was for. I guess it was Amazon first, which came up with kind of the first, what we think of as a mini tablet, like the original Kindle Fire. And then Apple, of course, has the iPad mini, and then Samsung has various mini tablets. Google has the Nexus 7. Fantastic tablets. That this form factor would make sense for Windows. So this would be an interesting companion device. And this fall, we've seen some really good examples of that, right? The Dell Venue 8 Pro, the Lenovo Mix 2, both of which I have and have reviewed, and then the Toshiba Encore, which I've not yet reviewed, but I plan to. These guys were first, They came out with the first Windows 8 mini tablet, and they came out in June, months ahead of the other guys. And it is such an epic piece of crap. And the funny thing is, I wrote a scathing review of it, and it's sitting here right in front of me. It may amaze people to discover that I use this thing almost every single day. I take most of the screenshots in the Windows 8 One book that I'm writing on this device. But that also means I've been using this thing every day, and I put up with it, and it has actually only gotten worse over time. And so even some of the things I kind of liked about it are turning out bad over time. So, for example, it sits on this keyboard tray, which is kind of a neat use for a mini device because you can use it like a little movie or audio player or whatever. But then you can put it on top of this keyboard thing. You can use it like a computer. But it's held in place by this little rubber strip. It's kind of hard to describe, but I have to be very careful with it because the rubber has, I don't know, bent over time or whatever. Now it can't really hold the tablet on there anymore. And so if I tap the screen too hard, it slams down onto the ground. And this is one of the worst. It's funny because I literally use it almost every day, but it's one of the worst tech products I've ever reviewed, ever. Like, it's just unbelievable.
That awful.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I mean, I think that's a lot of these Windows 8 tablets, and even and this is something I've been saying all for the last 2 years, that the manufacturers are cutting corners and they're putting out crap devices because they don't know what's going to sell. So they're cutting corners in every possible way. Look at all the laptops out there still with bad trackpads, and this is a big pet peeve of mine, Paul. The trackpads on these laptops are awful, and if your experience is so gesture-centric and so touch-centric, you're going to have a really bad experience with it. I mean, I just don't understand it.
Yeah. No, this is a terrible device. They're coming out or have just come out with something called the W4, which is an updated version of this that has the Bay Trail processor instead of the Clover Trail and so forth.
So what makes it terrible? Just in general?
So everything? It's got last gen Atom, terrible performance, bad battery life. But the killer, honestly, is the screen. And it's not the resolution of the screen. It's the quality of the screen. It's a hard thing to explain if you've never seen it, but you can almost see little dots of light in it, different color dots of light. It's got kind of a glistening effect, like a sheer to it almost. And somebody hit the nail on the head. I was at Build, and I was talking about with some guys at Build. I apologize, I don't remember who said this, but somebody said that it reminded them of some of the early tablet PCs from a decade ago. And as soon as they said that, I was like, yep, that's exactly what it is. And back then, if you think about the kind of engineering challenge of a decade ago, of you're putting a digitizer on top of a screen. And so if you think about it, it's basically two pieces of glass or plastic, whatever they're made out of, that are glued together. And the one on the top is what gives you the ability, in this case, to do touch and pen. In the old days, it would have been, I guess, mostly pen, but whatever, touch as well. When you glue something onto something else, it's like that thing. Anyone who went to took high school science has had, like, you're going to put something under the microphone, and so you put it under the film, and you press the film down on the slide, and it, the water kind of glitches out, and you get that kind of effect. And that's what this is. It's the effect of a piece of cheap material being glued poorly onto a piece of other poorly made material, and the whole thing is just poorly made. And so today, in 2013, we know how to make these things better. So when you buy an Apple device, a Nexus, any device, they all look beautiful. You don't ever notice that this is multiple screens glued to each other because we just make them better. But this is like out of the olden ages, like before we knew how to make things properly. And that's exactly the problem. It's like this old-fashioned piece of crap. It's terrible.
I didn't have this on my list, but I do want to say I'm not a fan of Windows RT. And
okay.
That you coughing. And I do think that it deserves to be on the list as,
I don't know,
something that we all understand what the end result will be with this.
Yeah. But
they're still not acknowledging that as this is what this is supposed to turn into. But I mean, the Surface 2, I don't understand how these devices are not being pushed.
Yeah.
In a way to say, like, this is the device you should buy. Like, I want to buy.
I'll tell you something. You criticized Chromecast earlier for being I don't remember if you called it an experiment or a beta test or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
You could make that argument for Windows RT.
Absolutely.
Because RT at some point in the future, it's like we're halfway there. RT 8.2 or 8.3 or 9.0, whatever they call it, will eventually be that vision for RT that they had. This standalone touch-based system that not just the OS now has been updated to support that stuff fully, but all of the key applications are there, Office primarily. The version of RT that shipped originally a year ago was this weird mismatch. It's the complaint I made about the Chromebook, where it's a computer. It looks like a computer. It looks just like Windows.
But it's not.
And then you're like, wait a minute, I can't run Chrome on this thing? I can't run iTunes on this thing? What is this? Like, what? It's like this thing that looks, what an awful joke to play on somebody.
Yeah.
here's something that looks exactly like this thing you know and love. It doesn't run any of the applications you want to run. It's a terrible thing, you know. And so I actually think that this year RT, like Windows 8, has improved dramatically. And I think the Surface 2 in particular is a beautiful device. But, you know, you need this whole surrounding ecosystem of stuff to kind of move forward with you. And so RT took some important steps forward in 2013. But it still has a way. It's still far away. Yeah.
I haven't read your review of the Nokia tablet that they just released. What did
I haven't written it. So
okay.
I wrote a preview of it. My deal is I'm not going to review this thing until I get the keyboard. Because I feel like it's incomplete and that this thing just as a standalone tablet is worthless. I don't believe that anyone will buy, and again, not speaking literally, because I will hear from that one guy who did it. I don't feel that anyone is going to buy this thing, just the tablet, and use it that way. I think that this thing is, it's in an awkward spot because like Windows RT, it's an entertainment device that can also be used sometimes as a productivity device, whereas like a Surface Pro is a productivity device that can sometimes be used as an entertainment device. It's a fine device. You know, the hardware is beautiful and all that kind of stuff. But I think the Surface 2 is a better buy.
A Surface 2 RT.
Yeah, for a variety of reasons. You know, it has a kickstand, for example. It has a choice of keyboards, which I think is kind of cool. There are a bunch of reasons, but yeah, it's incomplete.
You know what, Paul? How come? To kind of go back to the Surface, how come we haven't seen all those add-on keyboards that we were supposed to see? You know, the specialty keyboards that they were kind of saying during that initial announcement.
I think next year is the year for that. I mean, the Surface guys obviously have a lot coming down the pike for next year. And I think that third-party blades, or whatever they're calling it, I think blades is the term they're using, will be part of that. But I don't know. You know, I also wonder what's the utility of these things. I mean, the one they showed off that they were so proud of, this kind of DJ thing where you can play with music on this touch thing. I mean, that's just not a huge use case.
I think you would use that all the time. The party at the Thorat, you're just sitting there and DJing with your blade. I think that'd be phenomenal. So I think that's our list, right? Did we go through everything on our list? Let me just double check here, and then I want to just go through. Oh, you had one more. Oh, how did I forget this? How did I forget this one, Paul? The smartwatch.
Why do you hate this? What's the?
I in general, and listen, I was wrong about the iPad. I said that nobody was going to buy this thing. So who knows? But I honestly think this is a really stupid device. I'm talking about the Galaxy Gear, for example, the Pebble, for example. These are just gimmicky. All these companies are jumping on a rumor that Apple's making one. The Galaxy Gear, in my opinion, is a total waste of money. I don't know why anybody would get it. A friend of mine bought it, and we were having a drink, and he showed me. He's like, look, I could get my email. Look, my email's here. It tells me the time. It tells me my text messages. And I go, yeah, but my phone is in my hand too. And look, my email's here. My text messages are here. And you just spent almost $400 on this thing. Plus you spend another $399 on your Note 3 to do the same exact thing, but in a limited way. There's no benefit of having this. He's like, well, I could take my calls. Look. And he's like talking. I'm like, what is this? 1938? You're Dick Tracy?
Yeah. I'm amused by the Samsung thing because Samsung is a company that has continually been labeled as like a copier, you know. In that way, they're sort of like the new Microsoft, right? They're always copying Apple. Samsung copies Apple products that have never been made, which I find to be very humorous. And this is a great example of it. And it's sort of a weird thing to say, like, oh, you're copying Apple when Apple has not, in fact, released this product, right? It's just really funny. But on the other hand, don't we all really believe that that's why this exists, right? That there were rumors that Apple was working on a watch and these guys will like make this happen quick just to get to market first so they can kind of make that claim, you know?
But they're like, I don't know what we're going to add to this. Like,
all right,
and what's amazing to me is, you know, we got all these leaked images leading up to this, and it was this curved glass and it was this beautiful watch.
Yeah.
I mean, we
And
literally
the thing
just
that came out was a Timex Sinclair.
Have you seen the bolts on this thing?
Yeah,
I mean, really, it's insane. So
it's ridiculous.
I really do think that the smartwatch concept this year, and Pebble put one out too, and
yeah,
I don't get it. Maybe it's me.
I don't get it either. I think I don't remember where I made this observation, or in fact, I don't think I even invented this observation. So if I'm stealing someone else's idea, I apologize. But it's certainly true that if you're in a work situation, some companies frown on people bringing laptops to meetings because they'll be typing away. They don't want people continually looking at their smartphone to do stuff, and they don't want people looking at tablets and all this kind of stuff. And you're sending these kind of cues that you're not really paying attention. But man, nothing says you're not paying attention more, or that you'd rather be somewhere else more than that action of you looking at your watch, right? And with a smartwatch, of course, you could be looking at something that's pertinent. In fact, you could have just been reminded through a buzz or something that something happened, and that's why you did that. But the message that it sends to everyone in the room is like, I don't want to be here. It's like, what's going on next somewhere else?
I love that on their website they call it a iconic innovation.
Yeah. Iconic innovation.
It could tell you how many steps you've taken, Paul. Look at this. This guy took 3,000 steps and he burned 350 calories.
Right.
I mean, $400. Why not?
It's nice.
Yeah. Do you have anything else on yours?
Well, the only other thing I had was because I really couldn't think of a fifth one. I added the Apple Mac.
Okay, the Mac.
With the new one, the
new one.
The trash basket.
Starting at $3,000.
I just, I mean, it's funny because there will always be people who defend stuff like this. This is the ultimate example of form over function, though. It's not meaning you can't expand it after the fact in any meaningful way, like with storage and so forth. I don't really have to explain this one too much, but it is a music world that it is apparently 18% faster than an iMac, right?
That's it. Yeah.
So for $6,000 extra, you can exceed the performance of the iMac by 18%. $6,000.
I always felt that
Ludicrous.
The allure towards the Mac Pro was that you could open this thing up and upgrade it. Yeah. And you could
it's a workstation, right?
Yeah, so you spent the $3,000, but if you need a new hard drive, guess what? You swap it out. You needed a new capture card, you could swap it out.
Expandable. Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, there'll be people who defend this by saying, well, there's like videographers on the go, it's like a portable workstation, they can take it with them and all that kind of stuff. Yep. Yeah, those 17 people are going to love this thing, which kind of explains why this isn't a product that meets a need. That it's not, we talked about BMWs and Mercedes earlier, right? I mean, people buy these vehicles. This isn't a BMW or a Mercedes. It's not even a Ferrari or a Maserati. It's like a Lamborghini. It's it's like a specialty car that few people actually own.
I mean, it's the Lamborghini of computing, I guess.
A status symbol, I guess. I don't know what it is. You're going to see these things popping up on shelves in videos that people make of themselves
on YouTube.
You know what I mean? It really is. It's a luxury item. It's an ultra luxury item. It's disgusting.
So before we wrap up, I do want to touch on what the viewers sent us.
Yeah.
And these were the top 5 or 6.
Really, in order.
Literally in order.
Okay.
We got Windows 8.
Yeah. Well, Windows 8 didn't come out this year. And the only thing I just say to that is I think Windows 8, again, not the full improvement maybe that people want, but I think Windows 8.1 is a huge improvement.
8.1 is a huge improvement, yeah.
I don't agree with that one at all.
Windows RT.
Yeah. And again, same argument, but I get why people say that. I don't know that I don't know. Windows RT is almost, it's not something. I get it. I guess I get it. I get it. I wouldn't put it on my own list, but I get it.
Smartwatch in general, all smartwatches. Android tablets, which I really didn't get because I thought it was a good year for Android tablets. I think the Nexus 7 is a phenomenal tablet.
I mean, Android tablets. I don't know the figure now. We'll look at it, whenever in January, February. But most tablets sold are Android tablets. It's not. it's never going back to Apple. I don't
Yeah.
understand. I don't know what the complaint is.
I
but-
guess I guess if we looked at it, the only two Android tablets that are kind of appealing are
Yep.
the Kindle, and which isn't
arguably
really
something else entirely.
so it's something else, yeah. And Nexus. I mean, the Nexus line. I would never go and buy a Samsung tablet.
I have been waiting for Google to update the Nexus 10 all year. And the reason I have, and I never got the previous version, which I believe was the first version, was because of the very positive experience I've had with the Nexus 7 this year. I'd also like to see something. I know they sell something sort of like this that's not a Nexus device, or not a Google Nexus device, but I'd almost like to see a Nexus 8. I almost feel like that these 8-inch devices I see on the Windows side in particular is kind of like that's almost the right size.
Oh yeah, I mean look at Apple with the iPad Mini. It's
a good size.
It's a very good size. I think the 7-inch size may be a little bit too small. You're absolutely right.
Just a little, yeah. It's kind of a fine line, but I'd like to see a Nexus 8, and I'm really curious about the Nexus 10 again because of the quality of the Nexus 7. And so I the Android tablet thing, I don't really agree with that one.
Yeah. And iPhone 5C, but not. Yeah. I don't necessarily think it's a hardware thing. I think it's an execution thing of what this device and who this device is appealing to.
Yeah, it's just so Apple. It's the aggravating part of Apple. It's like Apple pretending that they invented plastic and not ignoring the fact, and all their fans ignore the fact that this thing looks exactly like a Lumia, and they don't sell it at a reasonable price, and it's just like what? It's so bizarre. Such a bizarre product.
Yeah. One thing that I'm also surprised about is that they haven't redone the MacBook line as far as, they made it a little thinner, but this bezel is gigantic on the display.
Right.
I mean, it's obscenely big, and I'm surprised that they haven't gone to this, bezel-less look on the laptops.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have a 15-month-old Samsung Ultrabook that has a tiny bezel. Very thin machine. That's going to happen, right? I mean, Apple, I honestly think the only reason that hasn't happened is that Apple likes to milk their designs, a little longer than other companies. And I bet 2014 you see that across the board.
Well, I'm waiting for that to buy a new laptop because I'm a Mac fanboy, Paul, and I'm also a Windows fanboy. And whatever you don't like, I like. Not Paul in general, the audience, because I'll be accused of it all. So, I guess
it's an interesting list, though. I mean, it's interesting. Kind of all over the map.
But that's it for the worst of. Next week we're doing a show.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, 31st. We're going to be doing a show.
It, as it happens, but sure.
Oh, you know what? I am back on the 7th. I'll be back from vacation. I'm coming back on the 6th, so I think we could do a show on the 7th as well.
Well, why don't you? That's fine. I mean, I'll be around, but you should, before you agree to do that, you should see how you feel.
I'm landing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on. Or
these things always seem like a good idea, until the day comes. So,
well, you know what? I'll let everybody know. I'll tweet everybody and I'll tell them. But next week is the best of, and the following show that we do is our wish list for 2014. So what we're hoping to see in the new year. Just some of the stuff that didn't happen in 2013. Apple didn't launch a TV like people were anticipating. Apple didn't watch a smartwatch, and Google TV did not take off in any form. So that's my what didn't happen in 2013. Paul, thank you for a great year. I think we did a very good job. Actually, no, why am I saying that? We got one more show before the new year, so I take that all back. I don't thank anybody for anything. I'll thank you next week for it. For all things Paul at the Rock, go to winsupersite.com. Anything coming up in the next couple days? I know that it's Christmas, so
Christmas is coming up.
Yeah,
that's about it.
I'm sure you're going to be posting. What are you getting for Christmas? Anything that's?
What am I getting for Christmas?
Yeah, do you know?
Yeah, I can't talk about it today, but next week.
Okay, we'll talk about what we got. WinSupersite.com. You can follow me on Twitter at The Rot. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zarian. Follow me. I'll be your friend. And of course, you can subscribe to the show. We're everywhere podcasts are available. Windows Phone. We're on iOS. We're in the App Store. We're everywhere podcasts are available. So subscribe to us. We have an audio and video podcast available. And that's it, guys. We'll see you all next week. And Merry Christmas.